In this video, I'm going to be testing out the Let's Resin Polyurethane Resin. Now, I've never used polyurethane before, but Let's Resin reached out to me and asked me if I would try it and review it on my channel, and so here we are. Before we get started, make sure that you tap the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future reviews or tutorials. So first things first, I'm always going to be wearing my respirator mask when I'm working with any type of resin, and my nitrile gloves. So that's just a disclaimer to anyone who's using resin for the first time. Make sure that you are protecting your lungs and your hands, your skin. Make sure you're protecting yourself. In the box are some gloves and a pamphlet talking about more Let's Resin products, and then the user manual that tells you a little bit more about how to use the polyurethane resin. Now, this resin isn't like epoxy resin at all. Yes, there are two parts, but that's where the similarities end. This resin is going to cure white. Even though it starts out clear, it's going to cure white. This isn't something that you're going to use for glazing or coating. This is more of like a casting type of resin. All right, so like I said, it comes in two parts, and both of the parts are water thin. They're very, very low viscosity. So in the bottles, they kind of look like water. Another thing is this resin cures so fast. It has a 10-minute cure time and a 2-minute working time. And let me just tell you that 2 minutes goes by in a flash. Like it cures so fast, it's crazy. So just make sure that you have your mold ready, whatever you're going to color it with, have everything out and ready before you get started, because once you mix this stuff, you're not going to have time to play around really. Now, since this is my first time using polyurethane resin, I wanted to find out how to color this resin best. I know with epoxy, you can use all kinds of things, but this is going to be curing like a white milky color. Also, the compound itself is very different, so I had to test it out. So I'm going to be using a few things to test the colors out. I'll be using alcohol ink, acrylic paint, mica powder, and glitter. I want to see how each one of these reacts to the polyurethane and what shows up the best for future projects. I was mixing up really small quantities, so I used a pipette for part A and B rather than pouring directly into the cup. I didn't want to waste anything. So this is a 1-to-1 ratio resin, so equal parts A and B. Like I said, the consistency is like water, so it mixes very easily and fast, and that's it. There's no streaking, not a lot of air bubbles, just really easy to mix. For this first one, I'm gonna just mix it plain, no color, just so we can see what we're working with. And then from there, I'll move on to the alcohol ink. As I'm mixing each of the colors, you can see that the resin is curing so fast. You can see the colors changing as the video continues. For this third heart, I'm using acrylic paint. And this one was hard. Like usually acrylic paint mixes really well with epoxy, but it did not mix well with this. And so I stirred and it just didn't, it just never fully blended. And it ended up actually rising out of the mold like a souffle. It was really strange. All right, moving on to the glitter. It was pretty easy to mix and add in. And then the final heart is the mica powder. And so with mica powder, you really have to mix it well into the resin to make sure there's no like clumps of dry powder. So as I was doing that, I was also adding a bit more mica powder to make sure I got enough color into it and making sure that the clumps were out. But where I messed up is I wasn't doing that fast enough. So by the time that I poured the resin out of the cup and into the mold, it was already starting to cure. So all those little strings you see on the sides of the heart in the mold are the resin becoming really sticky instead of watery and like stringy because it was already starting to cure. So yeah, that was my fault for not working fast enough. Now, the other strange thing here is the glitter heart took forever to cure. And I don't really know why, since I mixed it the same way and all I did was add glitter. So there must be something in the glitter that slowed the curing time. After all the pieces were cured, it was time to demold. The first one was just the resin without any coloring at all, and it popped out easily and it cured great. The next one is the alcohol ink, and that cured really hard as well, but there was this like round spot, looked like a water droplet on it, and I still don't know where that came from. The acrylic paint one, like I said, it was really thick. It had risen above the mold, and then even though it was hard, overall didn't cure right. The color was off and the texture along the back was really lumpy as well. The glitter cured well, but it also had that little circle mark, which I don't understand why. The final one, the mica powder, which if I had poured it sooner, we wouldn't have had any of that stringiness on the back. My top pick from all of these color additives for this type of resin would be the alcohol ink. I say that because it's already in liquid form and it's so much easier to mix than anything else that we have here. Alcohol ink, of course, has a really low viscosity, as does this type of resin, so mixing it was super quick and easy. Now for my final thoughts. I believe that this polyurethane resin is a must-have for resin crafters to have on hand, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, it's super lightweight and strong at the same time, and so it's going to be great for creating bracelet charms, earrings, lanyard tags, bookmarks. The possibilities are endless when it comes to crafts that call for a lighter weight compound. Another reason why I'm going to be keeping it on hand is because it cures so fast. There are times when I just want to test something out. Like I'll make a silicone mold and I want to test it out to make sure that everything is right about it. This is super quick. Within 10 minutes, I'm going to have my answer. And I feel like it's much more affordable than using UV resin for that reason. Also with UV, you can sometimes have shrinkage within the mold, whereas with this, I did not experience that. So this will become an essential part of my mold making process. Plus, since it's such a low viscosity, you're not going to have to worry about your resin not reaching certain parts of your mold. This stuff is like water, so it's going to get into every nook and cranny. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, yeah, but what if I want to add a clear coat on top of this? Will cured polyurethane resin pieces bond with epoxy resin or UV resin? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. I actually made a video showing what happens when you apply epoxy resin or UV resin on top of cured polyurethane resin.